Still no major news regarding the gambling investigation into two Cleveland pitchers, but the little bit of news that did come out leaves us with more speculation, and none of that is good for the Cleveland Guardians.
Tanner Bobby the Guardians, and you're listening to Locked On Guardians.
You are Locked On Guardians, your daily podcast on the Cleveland Guardians. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome on into another episode of Locked On Guardians. It's Thursday, October 16th, and it's time for our favorite half hour of the day. We hope it's yours as well, because for the next half hour, we're talking about your Cleveland Guardians, as we do here on Locked On Guardians every single day, from the majors to minors and draft and everything in between. The only place you can get that kind of talk is here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team, your Cleveland Guardians, every single day. If you're new here, my name is Justin Lada, and I've been proud to be co-hosting this podcast with my friend and co-host Jeff Ellis for the last 3 years. And I've also enjoyed 18 years covering the Guardians minor league farm system for a number of different outlets, including as an editor-in-chief, writer, analyst, and much, much more.
As I said, I'm Jeff Ellis. I've been here on this podcast for 6 years since Locked On expanded to baseball. Before that, I was a national writer at Scout and 24/7. I want to thank you for making Locked On Guardians your first listen today and every day, wherever it is you get podcasts, as well as a big shout out to each and every one of our everydayers out there. There are so many of you that it is hard to keep track and mention everyone, give everyone a shout out. So I always go to some of the defaults like John and Anthony and David over in Great Britain that I kind of see the most when I'm going through and doing comments. So big thank you to everyone beyond even the names I mentioned in a small group.
Yeah, absolutely. We appreciate that, and had a lot of content for you on Wednesday between the Austin Hedges signing and, of course, our regular episode talking about Stephen Kwan's future with the Guardians. You can go check that out if you have not already. On today's show, we got a lot more to talk about, though, regarding the Guardians losing catches, but coaches, not catches, adding a catcher and adding coaches, and maybe even a prospect we might talk about in this one as well. We'll talk about why the bullpen has to be a priority for the Guardians this offseason. We'll start today's show talking about why the gambling investigation into two Cleveland pitchers is getting another twist, but it really doesn't deliver us a whole lot of meaty news outside of speculation, and none of that speculation really benefits the Guardians. Before we get going, today's episode, of course, is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, if you're a new customer, you can bet $5, and if your bet wins, you're going to get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app responsibly. Download the app today. Very fitting. That is our title sponsor of the show today. And we're starting off talking about the gambling investigation involving the closer who will not be named and Luis Ortiz. I'm going to say his name because he hasn't been here as long, but I don't want to use the closer's name because I'm still a little bitter about that. Funny enough, we'll talk about Austin Hedges a little more in the third segment, I think, but he did his interview with the Cleveland media today, and he was asked about how he felt about the situation regarding the gambling investigation and if he was disappointed, and he was like, I really can't say because there's not a whole lot of news out there. And he said, I really would hate to say that I'm disappointed if it comes back that these guys are cleared of any wrongdoing, and I have nothing to be disappointed about. And he said, I think, we might know the way it's going, but he goes, I'm not going to process my feelings or say anything until it's final. And that's just kind of where we're at. Like, there's not a lot of other news. And I want to be clear about something too, before we even get into this. The Major League Baseball and Rob Manfred, they are not going to announce anything during the playoffs. This is going to wait till after the World Series. So I know I've seen a lot of tweets and comments and just a lot of people from anybody else. I think even the insiders, a couple of texted me saying, why haven't they made finalization to this investigation? Why haven't they said anything yet? And they may or may not be done investigating it, but you can bet no matter what it is, it was not going to get announced during the MLB playoffs. It will be.
They don't want that distraction. Series. They don't want a negative distraction that threatens the integrity of the game potentially. Yeah, it's not going to happen.
I can almost guarantee you this is coming out like Friday, November 7th or something. Like that's when this is probably coming out. Let's be honest, or like Friday, maybe on Halloween. This is going to be a Friday news stuff, no matter what.
And even Wednesday before Thanksgiving.
No, I don't think it'll go that long. I think but they're pretty much wrapping it up, and they're waiting until it's going to be a Friday news dump. That would be an interesting one. Maybe they do it, and I can't wait till Black Friday. I was going to say they need to know before then. I think they will, but yeah, this is not going to be announced before then, and Cleveland is not going to know either. So the fact that Cleveland doesn't know anything either. And I want to ask you this too, Jeff. Do you think that even if, let's say, somehow this ends up that neither one of them is banned for life. Maybe they're suspended, or maybe somehow, some weird way, they're cleared of any wrongdoing. Major League Baseball is still not going to acknowledge it during the playoffs, even if it was good news
No.
for the Guardian. Good news. They're still going to not. They're going to pretend like this is not happening until the playoffs are over.
Let's say that probably the best outcome for this, if you're a Cleveland fan, I know there are people who be like, I don't want him back no matter what. No, I apologize. I got really loud there. But
no yelling on the boss.
I know, and the best outcome is they come back and say, this happened, but it was done under distress. Things were out of their hands. Threats were made against family members, this and that. There has to still be a consequence for these actions, but there's a human understandable element. And while that's all terrible, like I realize as I'm saying it, that's not a best outcome, but
in this case,
from what we know about what has happened with other players, it's not beyond the pale. It's not beyond the realm of possibility that gosh, I don't want to get myself in trouble here, but there's been like players killed, like by car chases and other events
that were intentional, not even accidental.
But it was targeted.
It was
targeted.
Unfortunately,
so there's been a rich history. Rich history isn't the right word at all, but there's been a history of players and issues and this and that. So like if that comes back, it's like, okay, they were already suspended for half a year. We're going to suspend them for all of next year, or we're going to suspend them for another half year. If those things happen, you get them back. Even in that situation, they're not going to let it taint the World Series, because all it does is it shines a light on the integrity of the game, and it shines a light on player protection, and it's all negative stuff. Even if it's like, hey, they cheated and they're suspended for life, that still threatens the integrity of the game, and they're not going to talk about it. They're going to wait till the season's done, till teams have been awarded things, till things have calmed down, and they're going to find a nice little calm point before you have to set your 40-man rosters and announce
Friday news dump.
Probably the Friday before you have to set.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. That might be a little bit later. I could see it happening a little bit sooner than that. That's probably a little bit.
They're going to want to give some time after the season to let it all.
Yeah.
Do they want to ride the glow?
Yeah, I guess we'll see. I don't know. I feel like it's got to be getting wrapped up here pretty soon, so we'll see. And the reason we're bringing this up is because the news hit on Tuesday, actually, that both the closer, who will not be named, Luis Ortiz, were supposed to be ramping up to play in the Dominican Winter League, and they had been working out down there for about a month now or so, and their team submitted their roster for approval by the Dominican League, and it was rejected. And I find it interesting that, and from what we've been told, not just us personally, but I think everybody who's been like kind of on this is, this had nothing to this came from the league itself, not Major League Baseball, but the Dominican Winter League. They are the league that decided not to allow the team to roster those two pitchers. It didn't come from anything else. It came from the league. But I find it interesting that there was an extension of the agreement between Major League Baseball and the Caribbean Winter Leagues, of the agreement they have where players are allowed to play down there. Basically, the way it's set up is anybody's free to play. There's no rule that says they're not allowed to play down there. But when it comes to prospects, minor leaguers especially, teams can get a waiver and say this player can't play because of an injury or fatigue, and there's exceptions made and all that kind of stuff. So they basically can rule players ineligible to play down there if they don't want their minor leaguers playing. They have less control over the major leaguers because obviously they have bargaining rights and all that stuff. But I find it interesting that those two leagues extended their agreement the day before this got announced. And it kind of feels like not a signal of what's to come. I think it's more of we're not going to try to make any waves. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like we just signed this. We're going to sign this agreement so more players can play. And the new agreement did allow more players. There's less restrictions coming now for more guys to play. But it felt coincidental, the timing. No?
Let's put it this way. If you think that the MLB didn't say tip their hand or do anything like this, then you probably also believe that that Locked On doesn't have isn't the reason that we do intros before every show. Like, if you think that is the case, then you might think that's the case as well. this is 100%.
We just do it to hear ourselves talk.
Yeah, no, we like to brag about our credentials. No, it's the same thing here. This is why that best case scenario where you have a chance of getting those players back, I think is unlikely because of the fact that like this feels like tipping of the cards for what's gonna happen.
Yeah. All right, we'll wrap that up a little bit. We'll talk about why the Guardians have to address the bullpen this offseason. Coming up in the rest of the day is Locked On Guardians. Believe it or not, it's week 7 in the NFL, and FanDuel has an offer you don't want to miss out on. Right now, if you're a new customer, if you have not gotten off the bench and into the game, you can put just $5 down on any bet on the FanDuel app. And if that bet wins, you're going to unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the FanDuel app. You've got Joe Flacco and Aaron Rodgers playing tonight in the duel of the oldest quarterbacks in the league. I guess as a Cleveland fan, you can feel good if Joe Flacco beats the Steelers, even though I'm not sure that's the smartest pick. But we'll see what happens. In baseball, you've got the Blue Jays showing some fight against the Mariners. That could be an interesting way to go. I've given up all hope on the Brewers, honestly, so I really can't go that way. I'd probably pick the Dodgers as much as I don't want to. And, of course, the Browns, they're giving up 2.5 points to the Dolphins. They're both 1-5. And that over-under line has creeped below 40. So you might want to get on that now. I'm still taking the Browns to lose. I'm not a hater. I'm just a realist. And what are you waiting for? Don't want to let this offer slip by. Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. Thanks for being here with us on today's episode of Locked On Guardians. If you're not an everydayer and you want more content, you want to make sure you don't miss that content, hit the bell on YouTube. That is the easiest way to get notified when we post a new video, like our regular schedule episodes that we do 5 days a week. And then when we do lives, emergency shows, like when Austin Hedges signs, we do emergency shows. We do one for Jake Junis back in January, I think we did that.
No, that was like right before the season. That was into spring training. He was right before spring training, right?
Yeah, so February. So if those things kind of happen, we'll go live if we can. And if you hit the bell on YouTube, you'll be notified of when that does happen, especially reaction videos. And of course, make sure you auto-download on all your audio platforms. We are literally on every podcast platform. And if we're not, let us know. We'll find a way to get there. And if you auto-download for us, I don't know, I'll meet you at the ballpark next year and I'll buy you a drink. I don't know. But let us know. And shout out to the everydayers as well and the insiders. We got more to come announcing some insider stuff as well. All right. So, yeah, you were saying, too, with the two pitchers, the closer who will not be named, and Ortiz not pitching in the Dominican League, being a sign of things to come. I think it's obvious, but I think it really was more, we're not going to make waves. Like, I'm sure Major League Baseball leaned on them a little bit and said, hey, here, we'll extend this agreement. We'll make less restrictions for you to get minor league players to come play for you in the offseason. And, yeah, I would recommend not rostering these two pitchers. Wink, wink, it was probably a handshake deal, or, you scratch our back, we'll scratch yours. Because I don't think Major League Baseball wants that either. I don't think that's a good look for them to be. It's still a distraction for them. Think about that. Like, that probably causes some bad press that they're playing down there and their names are in the headlines, things like that. I don't know what happens if they're banned and can they play down there after that.
Probably playing some of the leagues down there. Didn't Wander get signed to play in some of the leagues down there at one point?
I don't know about that, but there have been other unsavory characters who have been signed to play down there. So who knows? I think the obvious question here is, and Cleveland's already come out and said this in their end of the season interviews, that they have to go into 2026 not counting on having the closer who will not be named on this roster and Ortiz. Starting pitching isn't as much of an issue. You can never have enough starting pitching. They were relatively healthy this year. Ben Lively was really the only guy that missed time, right? Everybody else was healthy this season.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I feel like there's got to be someone I'm forgetting. There's always that feeling you couldn't, you're never that healthy, right? It's
no. I didn't have Bieber, obviously, yeah, but they knew that. Ciccone was hurt during spring training, but Bybee, Williams, Allen, those guys were pretty much healthy all year in terms of starting pitching. Ortiz was healthy when he was allowed to pitch, so they had a pretty good run this year in terms of health. That's probably not going to continue next year. Let's be honest. Lively may miss most of next season. Something's going to happen. So you still should address starting pitching. But I think what we learned this year, and they can pick up the option on John Means, and you still have guys like, Cal Steven coming, Austin Peterson, whatnot. But I think what we've learned this year is that when you have to throw Matt Festa, not to hate on Matt Festa, but the guy didn't join the club till May, and he pitched 65 times. Like, that is Brian Shaw level territory. And I wouldn't go as far as to say, I know that we're going to get some comments saying Shaw was terrible. Shaw was really reliable. I wouldn't go as far to say Matt Festa is Brian Shaw. We've seen Tim Herron have struggles, friend of the show, although he was good at the end of the year, or at least the playoffs, thank goodness. Colby Allard's a free agent, and I don't know if you can expect him to recreate what's going on there. We saw some blips from Hunter Gaddis. We saw some issues from Cade Smith when he took over the closer's role. Nick Enright's going to miss the season with Tommy John. You cannot count on Sam Hedges. You cannot count on Andrew Walters because they're all coming off surgery. You cannot count on Franco Alamon because he has a history of injuries, and he was very inconsistent this year when he was healthy. So the Guardians have no relievers outside of Cade Smith, I think, coming in the next year where you're like, okay, we know exactly what we're going to get. Because even Eric Sabrowski, coming off an injury, was inconsistent, and he's got a history of injuries too. He's got 2 Tommy Johns. So the Guardians essentially have one reliever coming in the next season that you can really feel is like steady as a rock, right? So this is an offseason. I think you have to go out and address the bullpen in a big way. I know everyone's going to say offense. They got to hit. The reason the bullpen actually hung on was because of the starting pitching, but I don't think you can afford to do that again.
Yeah, I mean, I think, of course, you got to address offense. And like I've talked about to varying degrees, there's the 3 black holes of, looking at center field, catcher, center field in particular, and shortstop. And, one of them you can keep the black hole, but you're going to have to figure a way through all of it is kind of the bottom line there. But you do need to work on the bullpen because this team and the way Vogt manages is so dependent on the bullpen. It's dependent on having depth, having guys to go to, and having that ability to have some guys who are rock solid back there. And, the other side of it too is at some point, let's be very honest, Gaddis wore down for the 2nd year in a row. Mm-hmm. Cade Smith has thrown a ton of innings.
Mm-hmm. And guess what? Now he's the closer, and he's in his last year of pre-arb, so you've got rising.
But even beyond that, and you got Sabrowski who threw a lot as well. And the other downside is eventually these guys are going to start getting hurt. Like that's what happens to relievers who throw tons of innings in multiple years. There's not a lot of guys who don't start missing time. So you also need more guys you can count on to eat some of these innings, so you're not overworking. So you don't have Cody Allen and Andrew Miller. Cody Allen's career ended before he turned 30 because of the heavy use Tito had for him. Like his career was done before he hit 30. He hit free agency and the Angels tried him and that was it. And now he's, in the booth. Like he got overrun, like overused, and they need that. Now I'm not saying ignore offense. As always, when you are, a bottom 5 market, second smallest in size, that's including metro areas. That's from the U.S. government census report. That they have the second smallest size. You got to pick and choose, and you got to wait in the weeds. And you got to find opportunities, and you have to find ways you can maybe target and add health. I'm going to throw this teaser out for segment 3, so you want to make sure you stick around. I have a potential trade idea to help the bullpen and add a right-handed hitter in one trade. So
a right-handed hitter. Oh boy, Jeff's getting froggy on me here. We came in expecting to talk bullpen, and Jeff's over here talking about right-handed power bats. Jeez.
I'm not saying power bat. I'm saying right-handed hitter. Oh. Let's pull it back a bit there, Justin. Pull it back.
Well, I'm not interested. If it's not a right-handed power bat, I'm not interested. As are all the fans. Sorry, I veto the trade if it's not a right-handed power bat. If you can't get me a Ramos Ramirez in this trade, I'm out. That's a no. Okay. The trade is vetoed. We'll see what it is when we come back. We'll talk more about bullpen additions. We'll talk about coaches leaving and catchers returning who are kind of coaches. We'll explain that more when we come back on today's episode of Locked On Guardians. This episode of Locked On Guardians brought to you by our friends over at PrizePicks. Every day we make decisions. We're adults. That's what we have to do. But on PrizePicks, being right can actually get you paid. So you don't want to miss out on the excitement of this football season with PrizePicks, where it's good to be right in a place you have a chance to be right for a change, right? Playing Prize Picks is fun, it's simple, and it adds more excitement to watching any sport, including football. All you got to do is pick more or less on these player projections. It's really a lot of fun. So you can pick things like Josh Allen's passing yards, Saquon Buckley's rushing touchdowns, and you're in the game. And they have cool features too, like stacks. So if you're looking at some of your player projections, if you want to add Josh Allen's passing, rushing yards, and touchdowns in one lineup, you can do that. Also, they're giving you the injury reboot feature, which if your player in a game leaves early and doesn't return, it's not going to count against you. So they're kind of giving you a mulligan. You don't get a lot of that from fantasy apps these days. So download the Prize Picks app today. Use code LOCKEDONMLB to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONMLB. You're going to get $50 in lineups after your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, it's good to be right. As always, thank you for being part of the Locked On Guardians community, and we love being part of your daily routine. So after you finish up listening to us in the morning or whenever you listen to us every single day, head on over to the Locked On MLB channel. You can check out Sully on the Locked On MLB regular podcast. You can also check out Locked On's MLB Game Night, where our hosts around the league are hosting and recapping each of the games that are happening in the regular season, the playoffs, until a World Series champion is crowned. And you get insights from the local experts on these teams who live and die and are covering these teams every single day. So you're getting a really fun, easy, condensable recap, but you're also getting insights from the local hosts that know these teams best, not the desk of national pundits. It's a lot more fun. So I'll be checking that out as well, checking out the Blue Jays Mariners recap, and then previewing the Brewers Dodgers first game in LA, which fingers crossed, still holding out hope for the Brewers, but it doesn't look super great. All right, Jeff, have you changed your mind? Are you going to give me a right-handed power bat in this trade? Okay,
because let's be real honest. Like
you're fired as GM already.
Okay, the whole right-handed bat thing is the dumbest argument with this team.
You said right-handed.
I know, because I found a guy who also has has like a 120 WRC plus versus lefties and a 97 against righties. The important thing isn't what hand they are. It's if they're a good hitter. Yes, balance is nice to have in a lineup, but this is also a park that is built for left-handed bats and not right-handed bats. That's why right-handed bats have come here and not played as well. We have seen guys who have excelled in other places then come here and struggle because it is not a park built for them. But yeah, that's just one of those things that stands out. Like, yes, people get so focused on right-handed power because they haven't had them. And when they do bring in guys who have some, they don't live up to the hype because it's, what happened to all that talk a year ago with the jet stream? Like that went away quick. Remember that?
They should have extended Mark Reynolds when they had a chance. That's what I was banging the drum for.
Mark Reynolds struck out less in college than J. Slavalette, but that's a story for another day. People,
all right, so who are we trading for?
Okay.
Give it to me.
So, I was trying to look through things today. Let's start with like what made me kind of think of this is Philadelphia. Okay, and Philadelphia is in a weird situation where they're trying to do a mix of a rebuild and not lose pieces, but also have to extend their core, but they're probably going to have to let some of these stars walk. So, and they're also in this situation where they might be best for everyone if they use Orion Kerkering as a tradable asset and not have him go back and return after the errors, right? Like there's some talk from multiple sources, and Cleveland's a perfect place for him, right? Like we will hug and forgive anyone as long as he comes here and plays well. Like he can move way. And it's also, the talking to a few players over the years, the difference in spotlight between Cleveland, who I don't even think they have sports reporters when it comes to baseball, at least not radio reporters, but they and any other market, like, it is that situation. And that's a joke I can make because people make it in our comments. And again, I love like Nick. I know Nick talks about baseball and stuff like that on there. I'm teasing. But in general, it's a perfect place for him to come. Great pitching coaches, great development, and gets him out of there. On top of that, Philadelphia has been talking for years about trading Alec Bohm. Alec Bohm is a third baseman, probably be better off at first. He had good range 2 years ago. He is not a power bat. He's, in spite of the fact that he's built like he should be, that is not his game. He's also in the last year of his contract. He's slated to make $10 million in arbitration. So you're getting a rental who could play first base, for you. He's got some experience there. and who's been an above league average bat every single year the last 4 years. And frankly, at this team, that's where you got to start, is a guy who's going to be an above league average bat for you. So those two guys.
Getting?
So I'm going to offer him their choice of John Means or Logan Allen as the first piece. They need pitching depth. They're going to lose Ragnar Suarez. Andrew Painter is not ready to move in. They need a fourth arm and a fifth arm, honestly. I'm hoping they'll take Means. I kind of start there just because the $6 million helps balance some of the contracts. And Means has a higher ceiling than Allen, right? Like, it's an unknown and it's a 1-year deal.
Yeah.
Then on the other side of it, I'm willing to kind of go through and offer, I just had a brain cramp. Franco Aleman, because they've done a good job working with relievers like that, and they've gone out of their way to add strike throwing relievers. And then after that, I'm willing to, talk about one of the utility players that they could maybe use or need to extend out and see if, a Martinez or a Schneemann or someone like that interests them. It's not the biggest return, but again, it's a rental on Bohm who isn't going to bring you much. Yeah, it's a 1-year deal. Kerkering is a damaged asset. Logan Allen plus Aleman feels like a fair deal, but that's why I might try to push and see, hey, take John Means, balance some salary, gives Cleveland a little bit more flexibility. And, like I said, you put Bohm at first. He can play every day. He can do that. Manzardo is your DH. Then you let Valera and Kefis compete in right field, and DeLauder either competes there or maybe he competes in center, but it just sets you up in a situation. Kerkering's got some really nice stuff that's working for him as well, and it just gives you a guy with multiple years of control who could step in and help add some length to your pen.
Yeah, I'm curious to see how much damage Kerkering would have after what happened. Because Dave Dombrowski's not an idiot. So if Kerkering, they went through a long stretch this year of bullpen issues in Philadelphia, and Kerkering they thought was like their best back end guy, and then
he was kind of up and down this year.
He was
not as good.
He rebounded at the end of the year
for
them, and because that's why they traded for Johan Duran, because he was struggling, but then he rebounded. So I don't think Dombrowski's going to sell him for pennies in the dollar, because he's not an idiot, and they're going to have to find different ways to win next year. I would probably come back and say that trade's a little bit light. I don't think that's enough, just because controllable relievers are hard to come by. So I think you have to give up a little bit more. I'm sure it would take a prospect or maybe a more established player, which, quite frankly, Clue doesn't have. Or maybe there's a Cantillo involved. I don't know, but I'm not sure I would do that anyway. So I think that's going to be a little bit light, honestly, but it's a good starting point. I was going to suggest Dennis Santana from the Pirates. Now, he's also a rental. I think the Pirates would be good to go ahead and trade him as a rental, because they're not going to pay him. And I'd like to see Cleveland just go out and get a rental arm. I would like to bring back Jake Junis. Ryan Helsley's out there, who would be a great reclamation project for them, because he was terrible at the Mets, but he seems like a player Cleveland can work with. If you go out and you can get Junis to come back, you can get a Dennis Santana, and you go out and sign a Ryan Helsley, I feel much better, because you can't count on Espino either, who, by the way, pitched again in the AFL and pitched pretty decently. But those are all very much shots in the dark, and if they contribute something, that's great, and if they don't, you don't want to rely on them. So
the one thing I'll say that could be hard with Santana, I know we're getting to the end, is I'm surprised they haven't fired their GM there yet. So he is probably going to feel like he is holding on by the skin of his fingers right now, and he may be less prone to trade anyone.
Depends on what you can give him, honestly.
I think it has to be help for now, which is always hard to figure out.
Well, you could. You could give him Angel. I'd give up Angel Martinez for.
I don't think that gets you anywhere close, does it? Santana was better than Kerkering last year.
But remember, Santana's a rental. It's a rental. So
relievers, even rentals, can get pricey when they're as good as he was. He was one of the best relievers in baseball last year.
So to wrap things up today, too, I also want to note that Kai Correa, who was formerly a minor league infield coach for the Guardians, he left to go to San Francisco previously with Gabe Kapler, and then he became the Giants interim manager when the Giants fired Gabe Kapler, and then Stephen Vogt and Craig Alvarez brought him back to Cleveland to be on the Major League staff. He was credited with a lot of help, like with guys like Jose Ramirez when he was having some issues early in the season with his defense. Well, guess what? For whatever it's worth, Jose Ramirez was nominated for a Gold Glove again. So that award, is ambiguous. Who knows? But Kai Correa gets a lot of credit. I remember his first stint here. Prospects always talked very highly of him when I would talk to infielders, especially. So he is now the Mets' bench coach, and he's a rising star. I think this is a guy who's going to be a manager soon. So it's a big step up for him. Bench coaches also end up as major league managers at some point. So I wouldn't be surprised if maybe he might be the guy that takes over if Mendoza gets fired halfway through the year. Remember, he also has a good relationship with Francisco Lindor from his time here too. So that's also interesting. And then real quickly, one final note on the Austin Hedges signing. I saw a lot of comments saying, why not just make Austin Hedges a coach? I wish we had more than 2 minutes to talk about this, but it's so different. And I remember talking to Jason Giambi and Michael Bourne when they were rehabbing in Akron. I think it was 2014. And the messages you can send to players, the talks you can have, are the way you lead is way different as a player than it is a manager or a coach. So Austin Hedges can be more effective as a player when it comes to leadership than he can as a coach right now, because it's just a different relationship. And I think people need to realize that is true. In the brotherhood of baseball, that's a very, very different situation. And I could tell you that from talking to players over the years. It's very, very different. So,
and you can do more in the moment too. Like that's the whole thing. Like think of all the things Gavin Williams said, like the moments where he can catch and redirect in the game. There's only so much the manager can come out and say to you or do, and limited things.
Yep. Yeah. We'll talk more about it as the offseason goes on. And I've got more pitching things to talk about tomorrow. I'll host a solo show tomorrow, give Jeff the night off. So on Friday, you'll be with me. We'll be talking about the Guardians' advantage they need to leverage heading into 2026. So come back for that.
And we didn't get a chance to mention it, but I don't know if you'll talk about it. Maybe we'll save it for next week. Luke House, a fun prospect the Guardians added today. Something to look forward to in some of our prospect talk. Big old lump of clay. So thank you all for joining us. Get ready to rate and review. Download it helps. We have some iTunes reviews we'll catch up on. Thank you all, and go Guardians, go.